today, this is the first Grind Gaming interview of our new interview show we're doing, to be named later. You'll see the name of the interview or the name of the show on the video. Um, Today I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Ryan Lucich. Did I say that right? I always say it wrong.
Lucich.
Lucich. Yeah, by Ryan Lucich. He is a League of Legends coach in the collegiate scene, and yeah, I'm just happy to have him join me today to talk a little bit about esports in the collegiate scene and give some tips and whatnot about how you can get started, and what it's like looking for scholarships and what being on scholarship looks like for players. So Ryan, what's your like current and past positions and kind of history with esports so far?
Yeah, for sure. So I went to college at Texas Tech and joined their League of Legends team starting my sophomore year. Um, quickly became very involved with League of Legends in general. I got really into it. My freshman year, I played in some of the intramural tournaments. I started a team with some other friends that I met, and I got like really into the competitive scene, as I've always been like a very competitive person. And so it just kind of like fit in naturally, since I was kind of done with my traditional sports days. So um, I trained a lot, I would say, in solo queue, and I knew I wanted to try out for the team my sophomore year. And so I did. I made it onto the team. There was really only one other mid lane tryout, so it wasn't necessarily hard to make it on, but yeah, I joined with four other sophomores who we all just like instantly kind of clicked and got along very well. And there's still some of my best friends to this day. I think it was my junior year was when Hunter joined as the coach. Um, so after my first year of playing, and yeah, we pretty much played together until we graduated. Kind of decided I wanted to look. Yeah, my senior year, I saw a opening as a online high school League of Legends coach, and so I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. So I applied for that. I got assigned to three different high school teams in California. I was coaching them online. Um, very quickly, I really liked it. At the same time that was happening, there was also kind of a boom in collegiate varsity programs starting up. Um, and I guess I'll kind of define what a varsity program means before I get really into that. Um,
Yeah, yes, please. That
yeah,
sounds
yeah. At the
yeah,
collegiate
probably a good
level,
start.
almost every school in the nation has some kind of an esports club at minimum. Especially with the bigger universities. Sometimes you might not find them at like really small universities, or if they have them, it's like a really small esports club. It might be a mixed gaming and esports club, which includes tabletops. Um, but yeah, clubs pretty much every school has, and they're I'm sorry, there's like a really intense fight going on here. Yeah,
Oh, I'm
yeah.
seeing you're throwing
Um,
throwing
so
chalk room everywhere.
yeah, obviously, I think a club is pretty self-explanatory. It's kind of student-led, student-ran. It's kind of what the students make of it, right? They usually have some kind of advisor that's a faculty, but for the most part, they're pretty hands-off, and it's pretty much up to the students to create the club experience. And I felt pretty lucky at Tech. I met some really great people. Maybe sometimes the club experience itself wasn't the best, but the esports side to the club was what I really enjoyed. Now, varsity program, to me, it means three things. It means there's a practice facility on campus with gaming PCs for the teams to play at. It means that there's usually a staff member hired, either part-time or full-time, to oversee, coach, direct the program. Each program kind of does it differently. Sometimes programs will have a director and head coach. Sometimes a program will have someone who kind of does both of those things together, which I don't recommend personally. But some programs, they'll have a director and then they'll hire like student assistant coaches as like work studies or something like that. Sometimes they'll just have volunteer coaches. Sometimes they'll hire outside coaches, like third-party coaches, to come online. Um, it really does vary. And then thirdly, it means, or no, scholarships. Oh yeah, yeah. Thirdly, it means they usually offer some kind of esports scholarship for the players, and other positions. So that to me, that's kind of what an esports program entails. It it very much includes it also means that the university recognizes it as an official like competitive program. Some schools, again, this kind of gets complicated sometimes, but some schools have it under athletics, so they're treated like an athletics team. Some schools have it under student affairs, and so yeah, now that I've kind of explained that, and I can go more in depth about the specific school I coached at. So yeah, I found that online high school coaching for, um, I did that for about a semester. I really enjoyed it. I started seeing all these varsity programs popping up. I was a math major in school. I was looking into math careers, but kind of decided, I wanted to like explore, the possibility of, you know, coaching as like a full-time career. And so graduated in December. It was quite a long job search, I would say, about 6 months.
I
But
remember that job search.
yeah, I
You were
was
applying left and right, to be honest.
yeah, no, I did a lot of interviews and a lot of applications. It was pretty grueling, but eventually I found a school called Schreiner University, which was just about an hour and a half away from my home in Austin. So I was like really happy about that, or more like 2 hours. I applied, did a Discord interview actually, and I didn't even do an onsite. They just straight up offered me the job, and so I was like,
Oh,
yeah.
nice.
I was like, yeah, I'd love to. So yeah, that was really cool. Joined Shriner, and let's see, we had teams in. My position was definitely the like coach and director. I did basically everything. Um, and well, I had some student work studies that handled like broadcasting and streaming, but yeah, for the most part, I kind of oversaw everything and led each of our competitive teams. We had teams in. This is another thing with varsity programs that can greatly vary. Varsity programs might compete in completely different games. So, one program could really focus on League of Legends and Overwatch, but not every school will necessarily have those things.
Oh my
Woo.
god, this
Hold on here, I
dive
gotta.
is nutty. This dive is nutty.
Uh-huh. All right, we take those.
Oh my god.
Sometimes you just gotta get in the zone. Um, So yeah, as I was saying, schools, yeah, will vary with which games they have as offerings. I'd say almost every varsity program, the first two games are League of Legends and Overwatch. Those are by far the most popular collegiate games. And in my opinion, it's not even close. Rocket League is probably in third place, and it's Rocket League is actually rapidly rising in popularity. Um, Psionics, I don't want to fight this. Psionics put a ton of resources into the collegiate Rocket League scene, and it's been pretty awesome to watch how much it's grown. I
don't
think,
uh don't doesn't the collegiate Rocket League like streams, don't they get more than the professional scene
oh yeah, no, they
typically?
actually do. I think they like one had like 70K viewers. They do
That's
the
crazy.
finals are done as a live event at Esports Stadium Arlington, so pretty close to where you're at.
Yeah. About eight
And
minutes to be
yeah,
honest.
so League Overwatch, Rocket League is the third, and I'd probably put Smash Ultimate as the fourth that you see most in collegiate programs. Some
hmm
programs, another thing to look into when if let's say you're somebody interested in a varsity program in college, I could give you a lot of advice on what to look out for. I will say some programs are definitely use it as more of a recruiting tool, and they just want like students, and they give like a partial scholarship, and then they want they want your tuition money basically. Um, so that is one thing to look out for. Um, and some of those schools will pretty much offer they say they will compete in like 7 or 8 different games. It's like they'll say like League of Legends, Overwatch, Fortnite, Rocket League, NBA 2K. They'll just put a bunch of games out there, and sometimes I feel like they're not fully like equipped to handle that many games, and you won't get like as good of an experience, even though if like your main game might be one of those and it's normally not. Um, I can't tell you like what kind of experience you would get if they just say they offer at like every game in the book, because they don't have enough resources really to fully develop each game, if that makes sense. So that's just my
Yeah.
opinion on some of the programs out there that I'm not a big fan of personally.
hmm
Um, but yeah, so that's one thing to look out for. Um,
All right. good interaction there.
That was yeah, Balance Champion here. If you guys know League of Legends, you probably know Aphelios by now. Um, but yeah, so basically all the varsity programs are going to be quite different between the ones you go to. None of them are going to be the same or even really similar. I'd say a majority of the varsity programs right now are actually very small schools and usually private schools who, yeah, they really do. And I'm not saying like they really do it as an enrollment tool, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can be, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Um,
Yeah,
so
that
yeah,
makes complete sense.
yeah, yeah.
So if you're so how do scholarships exactly work for oh my god, good ulti. How do
Oh,
scholarships exactly work for players like when they're out looking for it? Like how would you go about as say a high school student, say it's like your junior year in high school and you're starting to like apply and look for colleges.
yeah,
What
yeah.
what should they be doing and not doing, and how does it look to like if you're going to apply for these scholarships?
Yeah, sure. So, I think a part of it kind of just depends on one, what you're looking for, and two, your skill level. There are varsity programs that are offering scholarships for a pretty wide range of skill levels. Not every single collegiate team can have like full rosters of diamond players or masters players,
Mm-hmm.
including varsity programs. So, there's definitely opportunities out there. If you're like a really high level player, like for League of Legends, say Challenger, for Overwatch, even Masters or above, um, I would say you can, if you are really interested in competing and getting better, you can look at some of the more established programs out there. A few of them I would say are like, let's see, oh,
Maryville.
brain lag.
Oh.
All right, we're gonna ignore that int there. Um, Maryville would be a little extreme. That's like
Oh,
challenger
okay. Yeah.
GM players for Overwatch. I'd say Winthrop is an up and coming one. I'd say
Oh,
Grandview
definitely.
University is a really good one to look at. UCI would probably be a little more difficult as well. Harrisburg would be pretty difficult. There's a lot of schools out there. Oh, I got to give a shout out to Savannah College of Art and Designs as well. Our friend is the head coach over there, and they offer quite hefty scholarships as well.
Yeah.
There's like really competitive programs out there that are offering like true pure scholarships, not
Like
just like
full rides
tuition
almost.
discounts. Yeah. Sometimes they're full rides, sometimes they're half rides, sometimes it's like it
A
could just
large
be
amount.
if you're like at a public university. A lot of times, if you're like interested in a public university and you're being recruited to esports, they'll actually give you in-state tuition, even if you're out of state. And some of those scholarships might not be much. They might be like 2,000 to 5,000 per semester. I'd say that's pretty standard. But you're at a public university with in-state tuition. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good opportunity. So if let's say you're not that high of a skill level, but you want to get better, and let's say you're really set on going to a varsity program and you don't want to just start at the club level. There are so many schools out there that are looking for you. I can guarantee it. And there's some really helpful websites that can where you can both search varsity programs, and you can also varsity programs can find you. One of them is I have some mixed opinions, but about NACE. I won't get into that. I could talk hours about NACE. But you can. I will say it's helpful. Go to the NACE website, and they have a pretty good directory of um, schools with varsity programs, and you can like reach out to them directly. Um, Almost every varsity program has like an interest form that you can fill out, and you can like get in touch with a coach very quickly. So did I even talk about my? Oh yeah, yeah. I mentioned I was
You're
at Shriner. So yeah, at Shriner,
yeah,
for
you did.
example, let's say you're interested in like a small private school. I will say, make sure the school would be a good fit for you academically, as well. I think that's really important. Um, but yeah, so let's say you're interested in one of those schools. You can honestly like just look up Shriner Esports, for example. You'll find like the website, and there'll be a direct link to fill out an inquiry form, and a coach will contact you and kind of, you know, ask you some questions, your interest level, talk about some next steps like applying to the school, things like that, the scholarship opportunities. That's like a really easy way to get in contact with coaches. Another really, really good website that I use a lot. I actually only found out a few weeks ago that I guess in order to use it you do have to pay to be found by coaches, but I so many coaches use it. It's called Be Recruited.
Oh,
Oh,
see ya.
okay, I died so I could just focus on talking,
Yeah,
you
there you
know.
go. That's what it was.
Yeah, it's called Be Recruited, and you make like a profile. You put what games you play, what ranks you are in each of them. You put like I don't know. You put you can put your high school academic information. I'm gonna mute all before I start getting flamed, and it's not something you can show on video, you know.
It's fine. I can blur it out.
But yeah, you can put a lot of information that coaches can just directly scout you by. There's some different discords that coaches post advertisements in, HSEL. Um, there is like I'm trying to think of the other one.
The discords that coaches look at.
Yeah, yeah. And they
Um,
also post like direct
Probably that like
advertisements in.
the NA scrim stuff.
Yeah, yeah. That's for League of
Also
Legends
works. Oh,
specifically.
for league specifically, yeah.
There's one called Be Recruited that I think they're kind of falling off though. Another website to look into is NCSA. It's like Next Collegiate Student Athlete. It doesn't just include esports, but esports have become a big part of it. Coaches also look at that. You can make a profile on there. So there's a lot of ways to really both like look like actively look at colleges you're interested in and reach out to them. But there's also ways where you can just be directly scouted and they'll reach out to you. So definitely look into some of those options and websites if that's something you're really interested in. Let's see what else. Yeah,
Uh,
so I guess hitting on that, we should also talk about the ways
like
in which you
the
approach a coach if you're interested.
Yeah, I
Because
these are some of my favorite stories that
yeah,
Ryan's told
yeah.
me.
There's a there's a right way to reach out to a coach, and there's also a wrong way. Coaches don't want. They really, I'd say the most thing they don't want is players with egos is the biggest thing. Just gonna hit a big ult here. Oh, just kidding. Um, yeah. I can't tell you how many players have reached out to me, and they start out with, um, hey, I'm like I'm a Fortnite player. I've earned thousands of dollars in tournaments. How do I get a scholarship? I'm like, okay, well, slow down for a second. And first of all, we don't even offer Fortnite as a game, so we might not be the best option that you're looking into. They just you don't want to come off too aggressive. Obviously, you want to convey that you're experienced, that um, you like competition. You don't want to just like not say anything about your skill level, but you don't want it to be like the main point of focus when you first start off. So like let's say something like I have like a really good example. There was someone who filled out an interest form, said he was like he played League, Overwatch, Rocket League. I was like, oh wow, that's like a lot of games that he could become involved with in us. And so it was one where he filled out the interest form. I reached out to him directly, and yeah, he just kind of wrote this whole paragraph or almost an essay about how much he loves competition, he loves improving, he loves the teamwork aspect, he loves, um, you know, the grind of improving on a team and just everything involved with it. And I was like, holy cow, like, can I sign you up now? It was like really those interactions are always really cool when you can tell like they have that competitive mindset. They want to improve, they want to work with the team. They're in it to like get better, to work with the team, to compete. And those are really the players I was most looking for. Not the ones who already think they're like insane players at the game and um, just want to like win, 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 and not kind of go through the whole process. They just, they're like sometimes um, they don't say this directly, but sometimes it comes off as, "Oh, look at my results. Give me scholarship now, please." And it's like, that's not exactly how it works. So yeah, you don't just want to come off too strong like that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. If you're reaching out to a coach directly, and the same goes for if they reach out to you. Don't just open up with like all of your accomplishments and like I've done this, 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 this. Talk about like some of your strengths and weaknesses in a team environment. Those are like things that matter. You know, I think you obviously it's like You don't always want to say like, oh, I'm like bad, or sometimes it's like hard to admit your weaknesses, but if you can like be honest and open about what your weaknesses are and what you like want to work to improve on, that's like really attractive for a coach to hear. That was kind of a weird word, but
No,
um,
I mean that I think that fits perfectly. Like
yeah,
that is what a coach wants to see.
that's what a coach wants to hear, and they're like, yeah, okay, if you're gonna be willing to work to get better and work well in a team environment, then yeah, absolutely, that's really awesome. All right, big,
Yeah. Wow, you're about to lose this game.
I am. I'm doing no damage.
Yeah.
Oh my
Looking a little
God.
weak there.
All right, well that was a fast game. Not exactly
That's
sure
fine.
what happened there.
We can queue up another one.
Okay, okay. Maybe I'll
So
do an A round
yeah.
this time.
So
But
to that works too. So to uh really, I guess, like, to summarize that, you want coaches are looking more for players that are aware of what they bring to a team environment, what they enjoy about competition, rather than just the accolades. The accolades are important, but and you should include them in, like, when you're talking to a coach, but you shouldn't make them the main focus.
yeah,
Is that what you're getting
exactly.
at?
Yeah, for
Okay.
sure. And maybe for some of like the highly competitive ones, like
Mm-hmm.
challenger, master tier or above schools, you definitely want to more focus on your accomplishments and your accolades. I think those are going to be a little more important for those. But when you're talking about these
Uh-huh.
small schools with varsity programs, the skill levels in those schools is really going to vary quite a bit. For example, at Shriner, like our Overwatch team was about 2700 SR average. Our League of Legends team was about Plat 2 average. Rocket League was like Champ 2 average. So um, not bad by any means, but it's not like
Yeah.
crazy. And so some of these players that wanted to show interest in like Shriner Esports, and they just open up with, oh, I'm like mechanically insane. Like I I tap heads all the time. I'm like I win lane every time. I carry games. I'm like, okay, but like, how are you gonna work in a team environment, and how are you gonna like improve with the team and that kind of thing? That's what I'm more looking for with a team of that skill level. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
more important to have a team that's gonna work well together, that's gonna improve together, than it is to just have a really high level player that might not work well, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
By the way, your stream is it's not streaming
Oh,
anymore.
oh, okay. I'll wait for the game
So
to load up.
okay, that works.
Um,
So those are like some of the do's and don'ts. And is there any like specific horror stories? Obviously, leave names out of like things of when someone is applying or like has applied for you.
I wouldn't say necessarily horror stories, in the sense that we had like really bad incidents. It's kind of like if they are giving off the wrong vibe, I'll
Mm-hmm.
kind of just slowly get out of touch with them,
Okay.
type of thing, or I won't like actively pursue them. Like if they want to apply to the school and things like that, I'll still walk them through the steps, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
like they kind of fall off my actively like recruiting, like, oh, I really want this player on my team, kind of thing. And it's a
Okay.
lot of it's kind of that first impression that they give off. It's more of they feel like they deserve and like should have a scholarship rather than kind of going through the steps on why they should have it. It's just kind of like they're very forward, and they just like just come off very bluntly, and it
Mm-hmm.
kind of gives off a negative first impression, I guess you could say.
Okay, that makes sense.
Whereas let's see, like um, some of the other good stories, just people who come off lightly. They say, "Hey, I'm interested in learning more about your program. Could you give me some details?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." And I'll usually type out some details. I might ask them some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime, you actually don't even have to really start off with your rank or what game you're interested in or your accolades. A lot of times, if you just tell the coach you're interested in, they'll ask you those questions themselves. They'll say, oh, what games do you play? Like, what are your experiences? And then it's much easier for you to just answer it in a like a non braggy way, I guess you could say. when they
Yeah.
ask it directly to you. So that I think that's actually a good tip. I actually really liked it a lot more when players would just say, your program caught my eye. I saw like your YouTube video. I kind of did some research into Shriner a little bit, and esports is something I want to get involved with. I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. Let's hop on a call and let's start talking right away. um,
Hmm.
versus the other way where it just kind of puts me off a little bit, I guess you could say.
Yeah. By the way, it's still just streaming, not the game.
Oh, oops.
You're
All
good.
right, here we go. Here we go. There you go.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
My B, my B.
Um. So no, you're fine. Don't worry about it. So it, when I guess this is kind of straying a little bit from the topic of scholarship players, but if you are one of these people that reach out to a scholarship program, is there any way for them to like get involved in the esports program? Maybe not on scholarship, but maybe helping out.
Oh,
Or
absolutely.
what are some alternatives that they can look towards if they really want to be in the esports scene, but they're not quite scholarship ready.
Yeah, outside of playing, a lot of schools too have started looking to provide scholarships for other roles outside of just players. I'll talk about, volunteering at the school already and stuff in a second, but the schools are oof. Schools are offering opportunities for, streamers, casters, analysts, coaches, kind of all the above. There's really so much that goes into esports, especially like a well rounded program that doesn't involve just playing. So, um, there might actually be like scholarship opportunities for non-players as well. On top of that, if you end up going to a school that has a varsity program, you're not quite good enough yet to get on the teams. Maybe you don't even want to, but you still really enjoy esports. I guarantee you there's ways for you to become involved. More so at the smaller schools than the bigger schools that are really focused. But almost like every school needs casters. Every school needs volunteers to help with equipment, things like that. Day-to-day operations. There's so many ways you can become involved, and I can't speak for every coach. I can speak for myself though. If someone said they're interested and I said, that's awesome. Like if they're at the school, they're not like on scholarship, they're not technically considered in our program. I say, let's talk and let's, find a way for you to become involved. And so I really enjoyed that. And so that, there's students that are interested in streaming and broadcasting. Not so much. Sometimes students would come up and say they're interested in, a game where we're not really that involved with. Like, there's a lot of interest for Apex Legends, and they really just kind of wanted to go into our facility and play Apex. And I'm like, unfortunately, that's not really what our program is focused on. And I don't think we can support an Apex team right now. So, maybe like if you're looking to start another competitive team outside of what the varsity program has, um, your chances are pretty low on getting involved that way. But if you want to volunteer for the program, you want to help out in their operations and their broadcasting. There's definitely so many opportunities for that. Um, and kind of the other games part can kind of fall more onto like a club side that a lot of the varsity
Hmm.
programs they also have esports clubs there that might be able to field a team in some of those other games too that you could become involved with that way. Something that I think a lot of varsity programs struggle with, and everyone kind of does it differently, is on how to have a healthy relationship between their club and varsity program, because it's hard. It's very hard, and everyone kind of treats it differently. But yeah, if you're not able to find what you're looking for at the varsity level, definitely look to get involved in the club that you have on campus, if you do have one.
Yeah, for sure. I know that when I coached at Tech and everything, we were only a club. There were no
Yeah,
scholarships.
yeah,
There's still no
exactly.
scholarships. But so just kind of like I guess one final question is what does practice for a player on scholarship look like? So you've gone through all these steps. You've used all these incredible tips that you've already listed. You've impressed the coach. You got on a team. You've started classes. So what does your day to day look like as a scholarship player?
Yeah, for sure. So, um, you know, club teams, they might have like coaches and things like that, and they might have some contracts, but it's definitely a lot more loose, and there's not as many requirements, and there's not like really great ways of enforcing other than we might find a replacement on the team. With the varsity program on scholarship, there are definitely some very clear things expected of you. You know, if you're being offered a scholarship, um, yeah, there's some like you need to uphold some things on your end if that makes sense. So, almost every varsity program has like a manual, a student handbook that you will have to read and sign, acknowledging that you understand everything in there. Um, it's not to like scare you or anything. And I mean, a lot of coaches are very relaxed, like myself. You know, it's more like toxicity. You know, skipping practices without telling. Players get burnt out and they need breaks sometimes, and coaches should be are usually pretty accommodating of that. So I don't want to like scare anybody that it's going to be like grueling all the time, and the coaches are never going to give you a break. But yeah, at the same time, let's say you're on a team. Obviously, the first thing is showing up to practices on time. Unless let your coach know an emergency happens. Those are obvious exceptions. But um, yeah, typically, again, this varies between colleges. There's like 2 to 3, probably scrim to practice days a week, I would say at minimum. Um, and those are usually going to last about 3 hours each. And so yeah, during those 3 hours, I mean, you need to. This again goes back to the manual. You need to be participating in discussions. You need to be focused. You need to be a good teammate, and I mean that means a lot of things in itself. Not getting too frustrated, being able to take criticism, all the things that go into being an esports teammate. You need to have a good attitude during practice. Um, yeah, so those are kind of the practice requirements, I guess you could say. Me personally at Shriner, I had a we'd start the week off with a meeting day for each of our teams. And so we would just strictly um, have a discussion about what's going well, what we need to work on, strengths and weaknesses. We might scout our opponents, things like that. And then we would also have like a little VOD review to review matches or scrims. And so, a lot of players don't kind of they aren't ready for that entire competitive atmosphere. They think they're just gonna, um, come in and just play games and just carry games and that's all it is. No, there's a lot more that goes into it. There's team bonding. There's reviewing like traditional sports. There's meeting, talking about strengths and weaknesses, creating strategies. All of those things are expected of you if you're going to be a varsity player. You can't just expect to auto play scrims only and then matches, and that's going to be it. Um, there's a lot more that goes into a legitimate team environment. Um, let's see. Other than that, almost every varsity program too is now starting to have some kind of fitness requirement. And
Hmm.
let's see. I didn't do it as much as I would have liked to or should have, but one example is like we had a boot camp that we ran a week before spring semester classes started. It was like 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. for a week straight, where they were together, and we started each day with an hour workout, and I didn't really wasn't that strict on workouts outside of that, but during that time, they actually a lot of players found they liked it and they kept up a routine after, which I thought was really cool. And they worked out with teammates. If I always encourage teammates to kind of do those kind of requirements together because it's a bonding experience. Two, you're much more motivated if you have teammates doing it with you, that kind of thing. Um, ooh,
Oh.
just gonna auto this man to death.
Oh.
Yeah, and okay, so outside of that, also, yeah, well, let's talk about academics here. So yeah, to
Oh,
be
academics.
first of all, to be eligible in pretty much any collegiate competition, you have to be a full-time student, which for most schools means 12 hours a semester, which is typically about 4 classes if they're each 3 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to be a full-time student. You have to be in good academic standing as well. That again varies between different schools. Some schools like they have a lower GPA average to be in good standing for freshmen, and then higher for sophomores and above. They had that at Shriner, for example. You were if your first semester of college, you had below a 2.0 but above a 1.75, you're still considering good standing. Whereas if you're a sophomore above um, anything below a 2.0, you're not in good standing, and that immediately
Hmm.
makes you ineligible. Um, so you do have to keep up those grade requirements. You have to stay in good academic standing, stay eligible. Some programs will even have stricter requirements, and I know we started implementing stricter academic requirements. There might be a study hall clause in the student manuals. Like if you're below a certain GPA, you might have this amount of study hall hours per week. We also started having more regular grade checks for those students who had shown like some poor performance in previous semesters. Um, they had to send us a grade check every 2 weeks from their online. It was called Canvas. Their like online grade reporting thing. I don't know what to say. So and based on those grade checks, we might sometimes we might even hold them out for practices, not as like a punishment, like you're great, like um you really should be spending more time studying instead of practicing, and it's not like we're gonna bench you if you're eligible, but a bad grade check comes in. It's more these like academic requirements and study halls. It's just emphasizing that you're at a college. That should be your number one goal, and the coaches, they don't want to like well, I mean, not every coach is the same, but for me, um I more than anything, I just want my players to, succeed and learn and develop as players and as students. So, if they have like some bad grades, if they're struggling, um, I have these requirements they have to do, study hall grade checks, and it's not as like a punishment. It's like you really need to be focusing more time, and you might not like know exactly how to handle your studies yet, and I want to help them do that more so, if that makes sense.
That makes
Um,
perfect sense.
but yeah, so there's going to be academic requirements. There might be fitness requirements. There's going to be meetings. You must have a good attitude in practice. You need to be a good team player. So, I mean, it can be a lot. And depending on the school, the really competitive ones, it's going to be more requirements than, some of the less competitive ones, I would say. Some schools like the ones offering a wide variety of games, they have like one coach handling everything. They might not be able to keep up with everything, so there might not be as many requirements. But again, that goes back to the whole, developing and getting the students really getting the most valuable experience that they can from the esports program.
Yeah, and I think that was an incredible answer for for what it looks like. I think it give a really well rounded and solid picture for anyone going into college and that wants to apply for one of these teams. And
Yeah.
just a day in the life of maybe I'll get maybe I'll find some players to interview as well, just to get the player side to
Oh
see
yeah,
what's up.
yeah, that'd be good.
Um, but yeah, thank you so much. So like
Yeah.
as a recap, any like final thoughts and like tips that you want to give, just like as a quick recap
Um.
for what people should do. So like kind of like what we had with the do's and don'ts. So
Yeah, yeah.
express
Yeah.
how much you want for teamwork and how much you like that, not just your accolades when you're talking to coach and
Yeah, for sure. So definitely the first step, again, do your research. Look into those some of those sites I mentioned. There might be even other ones I'm missing. Where you can both find varsity programs, or
mm-hmm.
varsity programs can find you. You can make a profile. Look into those first. That's definitely the first step. And find schools you're interested in, for sure. You need to really like the overall environment of the school and not just the esports program. I think a lot of kids run into that. They get really excited about this esports program. It looks amazing, and that's again some of the programs that I might not be such a big fan of. They really just want more students at their school, and so they make their program look really attractive. And the student, they get there, they find out it's not what they were expecting. They don't really like the overall school atmosphere. Make sure it's a school that you are actually interested in academically as well as the esports program. I'd say for the smaller schools. For the more, if yeah, again, if you're like Masters Challenger, um, your best competitive experience is going to come from the Maryville and the Harrisburg and the UCI and the GVU, so it matters a little bit less. But if you're, looking into these small private varsity programs with scholarships, make sure it's a school that you're going to enjoy going to, because that will get that's one thing that can really hurt your academics more than you would imagine is not liking your academic or school environment. That can get you in trouble. So yeah, do some research into the schools you're interested in. Reach out to those ones that you are. Um, you know, it depends on where you live. Some states have way more varsity programs than others.
Yeah,
Texas
that's
is kind of
absolutely true.
exploding with varsity programs right now. There's like, I want to say there's maybe even like up to 16 that will be starting by next fall, and there was 7 when I started last summer. So it's
Wow.
exploding in Texas. The Midwest, Kansas, Missouri is probably the hottest spot. I mean, yeah, it's kind of expanding all over, but yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind if going out of state would be an option for you. But yeah, do your research, reach out to those ones that you were. Don't be afraid to, hop onto calls with coaches. I used to be pretty shy on voice and on phone, but that's going to be the best way to get information. Is just get on a
Hmm.
call with those coaches, talk to them about their program, talk to them about yourself, see if you might be a good fit, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, I think that's about
Just
it.
I think my last thing, something I would tell my players when they got on to the team, even though it was just a club team, but more importantly with scholarship, is uh, the the finish line is not when you get on the team and get the scholarship. That's just the starting line. Like, you just got invited to join the race.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
finish line is like at the end. So all the hard work and the sprinting and whatever you have to do, or the metaphorical sprinting,
Yeah, yeah.
is all ahead of you once you get that scholarship. So that's a really
Yeah,
really
that's a
important
good
thing to
point.
remember, is to know that you don't get to start slacking once you get that scholarship. That's when you start to get to work.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for joining me today,
Oh,
Ryan.
I did have
Oh,
one
oh,
last thing. I mentioned Shriner. I'm actually no longer with Shriner as of a few weeks ago, and haven't
yes.
announced it fully on social media yet, but I have been given the clear. I will be joining UNT as a graduate assistant for their esports program, so that's where
Ooh,
I will be headed next.
heck yeah. I knew that, but I wasn't sure if you could say it, so I didn't say anything about it.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. So Reiner, also known as Platypus on, I think, most social media. Ryan Lucich, in real
Yeah.
life. I can't say the last name. Never will be able to. Uh, but uh, but we'll be Platypus on like almost everything. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me today. A
Absolutely. Thanks
lot
for
of good
having me.
tips. This has been the first interview. There'll be many more to come. Weekly will probably not be a thing, but when they're ready, they're ready, and we'll send them out there. So I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining us.